So I want to read you a tweet that I actually just read. It's from Lindsey Graham. I'm assuming this is from roughly last year. It says, quote, "Well done, Mr. President. Picking Pam Bondi for Attorney General is a grand slam, touchdown, hole-in-one, ace, hat trick, slam dunk, Olympic gold medal pick. She will be confirmed quickly because she deserves to be confirmed quickly." I am no
Mm.
expert, but after
Mm.
the past year of seeing her just fumble every handoff, every easy hole in one with this Epstein case, I'm thinking once again Lindsey Graham may not be accurate in his statements.
No, he's very much a Fox News commentator, future Fox News commentator when he retires
If he
after
retires.
his maybe what sixth session in the Congress, right? Maybe somewhere along that in the future. It's a future gig with Fox News. Um, I've lost faith in her. I don't. Look, I get the fact that she was defensive in a way. I will completely agree with her that there was a lot of grandstanding, especially
Oh,
from Democrats. You know,
every single hearing in the House and Senate is just political theater.
yeah, they've had since what? Once again, we've talked about before. They were in power for 4 years before the Trump administration. At any point in time, they could have released those files and had hearings on them and indicted people.
Yeah,
It never happened.
I think she even
Never
pointed
happened.
that out. She said something like, where was your criticism of Merrick Garland?" To one of the Democrats, and he's like, "Well, he failed too." And it's like, "Oh yeah, we're just kind of glossing past that though, where you had 4 years to like, uh, was it Merrick Garland? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you just kind of gloss past that. Where, sorry, I forgot that for some reason my mind got stuck on him being Obama's Supreme Court pick. Um,
Good thing that didn't more happen.
what a
Sorry,
what
that's
a
another
life
discussion.
what a lifetime ago that was.
Mm.
But yeah,
No,
it's like yeah. I mean, she does raise a good point in that as far as the
they weren't they in chart? Didn't they have all branches of government minus the
uh
Supreme Court? But that's irrelevant to. But they were in total power, weren't they? At any point, if they truly wanted to, like go on about, seeing all these men and stuff in the files, didn't they have perfect ability to, indict all these guys and to go after them? They
well,
didn't. It's grandstanding.
I think that my timeline of events for the Epstein Files has been very much. I think they were really
2019.
I think they were really hoping it would go away. COVID happened, and then we got rid
Mm-hmm.
of Trump, and let's focus on stopping Trump and the war in Ukraine and all this stuff. And I think they were hoping for the public to just kind of forget about it, and
Yeah.
then they didn't. And we've talked about Trump and how he probably thought he wasn't in the files as much as he was, and him being kind of a wild card in that. I think he kind of screwed up the plan, but
Yeah, but how? Think of at least the way I think of it. I'll still go after her here in a second
oh,
when we get
absolutely.
back to her. But like, how can you try to take the high ground now when you didn't for the past 4 or 5 years? How can you do that now? The only time those victims are relevant to you is when you're trying to go after Trump.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
That's
mean
all.
they had those victims standing behind Pam Bondi and raising their hands and
At
stuff, and
any
it was like
point they could have.
it was like where was your concern for these victims? Where was your calling out for these victims? 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, three
Yeah.
years ago. Why weren't you calling them before Congress then? And hey, has Merrick Garland got with you? No, they were fine
Yeah.
with it. Let's let this die. But now that it's Trump, now we
I
got a
find that
grandstand.
just as sick. I find that actually just even more sickening.
Oh, that
And
both
if
sides are
Republicans
using
did it,
the victims of this as political pawns.
yeah,
I mean, we've seen the video, the
American
pictures.
politics, people.
Yeah, for real. We've seen the pictures of the victims standing up behind Pam Bondi and everything, and it's all just being used to kind of throw dirt at Trump and Pam Bondi, and rightfully so, not defending them by any stretch of the imagination, but it's like, okay, where were you? Where was your concern for this all that time ago? Why are
Yeah.
you, even the Republicans, they were quiet on this. I mean, they kind of
Yeah.
brought it up here and there or during Biden's administration, but not vocally enough for him to do anything or to put any meaningful pressure on him.
Yeah. I don't know. That hearing in itself, I lost a lot of faith in just our government as a whole. And it kind of just shows you how, at the end of the day, anybody's irrelevant until it's a matter of politics.
I
You know,
just want to say you sound like you have Trump Derangement Syndrome. And I don't think you're taking into account the fact that the Dow Jones is up over 50,000 and
Can we-
all the great things this administration is doing. You are just
Oh my gosh.
focusing on
Yeah.
this one thing that if you just ignore that, if you ignore the child sex crimes, everything else is great.
Everything else. Can we
I-
talk about that? Like, at any point, as soon as I heard that, my mind was immediately like, you lost this. Whatever you were trying to pull to protect the administration or defend yourself and your work and your efforts, as soon as you said that, you just lost all relevance.
I think
How the fuck does the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 have to fucking matter about the Epstein files?
I think this goes into that cult of personality I've talked about before.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Where we can't criticize Trump if we're in his administration. No, anytime any mud's thrown at him, we have to lock shields and deflect it. And anytime anything bad is brought up, just pivot.
He's the greatest president in the history of the United States.
Never a better president. Maybe George Washington potentially one time for a minute, But it's like you can't. Anytime you start to corner, just pivot to something else. Oh well,
Yeah.
why haven't we released the Epstein files? Well, why are you focusing on that? Focus on the Dow Jones, And it looks ridiculous, but I guarantee Trump saw that and he was like, "This is why I chose you. Good pick. This was a great
Good pick. Good choice in words. I
Keep in mind, he's supporting her over Thomas Massie. Like Thomas Massie's the enemy to Trump in all this. And if Thomas Massie was, talking about how great the Dow Jones is and how great investments are and the S&P 500 and all that stuff, Thomas Massie would be the greatest Republican in the history of the caucus. But because Thomas Massie's pushing for, the release of the Epstein files, he's trying to hold the DOJ accountable. He's trying to hold the administration accountable. Let's funnel millions into a primary against him.
Yeah. I want to know what exactly are both sides hiding. Because, like, we know the Democrats didn't release it for 4 years. Yeah, the Democrats didn't release it for 4 years. The Republicans, the Trump administration's doing more effort than the Biden administration did. I'll admit that. But the fact that you're heavily redacting so much information, and it takes, Massie and others to kind of release that information over Twitter. What are you hiding? What are both sides hiding? Is it donors? Is it powerful people? Special interests behind the scenes? Like, hey man, don't release my name. It was just conversations. I just had lunch.
Yeah, I think it's all the above. I think it's rich and powerful donors. I think it's friends. I think it's family members. I think it's, the not like this.
Why the diversion?
What's that?
Why the diversion?
Just because the moment that all this comes out, the House of Cards comes falling down.
Yeah.
It's like you got to imagine all these rich people that are tied and powerful people that are tied to this. If you start taking those people out, you're talking CEOs, you're talking leaders of other countries, you're talking royalty. You're talking important people across the globe who kind of keep this whole thing running in the background.
The Republican in me is lost right now because I think over the years you and I talked about, like, let the system burn and start over, and every part of me is just like, fuck it, let it burn, let the House of Cards burn down to the fucking ground. If we're at the stage of politics and capitalism where we're protecting pedophiles because they're donors and powerful people behind the scenes, let it burn.
I mean, I think
This is
I don't know if we're at that stage as far as that. Like
it seems like that.
what I mean is like like this shit's always gone on in every country and every empire. This shit's always happened. But in the year of our Lord 2026, like when we are supposed to be so much better and so much more sophisticated, this stuff's still happening. Like we haven't moved past that at all. This is the stuff you read about. Like I like history, I read a lot of history. I've talked to you off the episodes, about the parallels between where we are currently versus like the Roman Republic. And it's like this is the shit you read about like Nero did and Caligula and shit. And it's like, okay, well, I'm glad to see 2,000 years later we're still the exact same and nothing changed.
We're a two-class system. The powerful and elite in one class, that can get away with whatever they please because they have the power and ability to get away with it. And the rest of us who, God forbid, don't pay in $10 off your state taxes or your property taxes, they'll come in and seize your home. And some rich can pay those taxes and seize your profit or seize your property, and you lose everything.
I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, I had to go to court over accidentally not paying my local taxes for a couple years and I had to go to court over it. And it's like, meanwhile, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos haven't paid taxes since before I was born. These corporations get away with it. These rich and powerful people are, flying to a island in the middle of the Caribbean to potentially traffic children, and we're just like, the Dow Jones. I mean, look over here.
Dow Jones.
Don't look over here. Look over at this thing over here. Nice and shiny thing.
You may not be able to afford a new home or a new vehicle, and groceries are getting a little more expensive every other week. But Dow Jones and S&P 500 people, think about that.
Yeah, because you, the average everyday American, is definitely trading stocks all the time and becoming a millionaire, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps.
So something else. I think you sent me the news girl TikTok.
Yeah.
Where she mentioned something that Pam Bondi mentioned something really, really interesting, and she mentioned that they did have ongoing investigations within the Justice Department.
I was actually just looking at my notes and about to bring that up. So I'm curious how that pans out, because if you look at Kash Patel's hearing,
I have that written down as well.
If you look at Kash Patel's thing recently, he was like, "Oh, no, if there was anybody, we would have dealt with that yesterday. Like Epstein's the only one involved. You've got Todd Blanche basically saying the same thing. You've got Trump saying the same thing, but then she's saying, oh, we've got pending investigations. And all these victims behind me I haven't even interviewed. So what's going on? Did she lie under oath? Did Kash Patel lie under oath? Somebody
lied under oath.
Somebody's lying about something. I feel like we glossed over that.
Yeah, somebody within that administration is lying. And I think Kash Patel and Pam Bondi have both lost their credibility. Nothing's going to happen, obviously, unless one of them's indicted or impeached. Trump's going to protect them.
Yeah,
they're doing everything he wants them to do, and that's keeping the eyes off of that for whatever reason.
I think Kash Patel might be on the chopping block. I feel like I read something recently that Trump was actually kind of unhappy with how he's been handling things, and if you look at like he was using like FBI agents as private security for his girlfriend, and he was using like the taxpayer jet to fly out to her concerts or some shit like that. So it's like I think if pressure starts coming because of this, if people start asking too many questions, I think I could see Kash Patel either. I could see him quietly leaving, just like you'll get a random tweet from Homeland Security or the DOJ or some shit at 2 a.m. saying like, "Oh, Kash Patel's turned in his resignation. We thank him for all his service. The president will announce his new pick tomorrow at 8 a.m. in a press conference or something like that."
Yeah. What was that other guy that just recently left the FBI? He had a podcast.
Dan Bongino?
Dan Bongino, him and Kash Patel went on and on about, before they got in the administration, about how they want to get in, why are they hiding so much information? Clearly something's corrupt. They both get in and they become mute. And now we're seeing this between these two different messages between them, and it's just like, did you become part of the supposed deep state? Why are you lying? Why are you covering information?
Listen,
Why can't you
I don't
give
want to
it?
be a conspiracy theorist, but it's an odd change when everything I'm seeing is screaming, shit happened, that terrible things happened. But then I've got him coming up and Dan Bongino. Well, Dan Bongino, I think he has kind of hinted in tweets and stuff that there's more to the story, but that they did a 180, and it's like, all right, well, what changed? Because I
Yeah.
could see if it was like, well, I got in, I saw the evidence and it's just not there, but it's like, okay, well, either you need to share that evidence because 90% of America is not agreeing with you, and it just looks very corrupt.
Well, yeah, there was that one congressman in that hearing. He mentioned that he went to the Justice Department to look at the files, right?
Hmm.
I think it was like Congressman Gold something. But he mentioned that he went to the Justice Department, he looked at the files, and even there they were redacted. He had a little more access than, I guess, supposedly what we had seen, but he's like, a lot of the big substantial stuff is still redacted for members of Congress. And it's like, why is it even redacted for them?
I
What are the
think
names?
I don't want to keep harping on the same point, but I think again this just goes to that cult of personality with Trump. I mean, you look at they were saying that the congressmen were being spied on. They said that the list that Pam Bondi brought to the hearing with Jayapal's Congresswoman Jayapal had her search history and the Epstein files on it. I
Mm.
got a quote here from Nancy Mace. Um, she's a Republican from South Carolina. She says, "There is someone or two people from the Justice Department monitoring you as you sit on those computers," Mace told NPR. "There is a tech person who logs you into the computer. They log you into the computer because they're giving you your own identification. They're tracking all of the documents that members of Congress open, and they're tracking everything that you do in that room." I think the whole thing is that anything that incriminates Trump potentially, they're redacting. They're looking at what people are looking up so that they can get ahead of it, or they can shout fake news, or they can hold it against them or whatever. I think
That in itself speaks guilt.
that's what I'm saying. It's like,
What the fuck are you hiding? If you're spying on members of Congress who are looking into that, what are you hiding?
well, and that brings up, I don't know if you've seen the conversations happening around that, is the separation of powers, where
Yeah.
the executive is supposed to basically stay out of the legislative's business. Well, the
Yeah.
DOJ works for the executive, and they're spying on the legislatures as they're going in and looking at this stuff. And even Mike Johnson, I guess, he played the Speaker of the House. He played dumb when he asked about it. And he's like, "Oh, I haven't seen any evidence of it." But he even said, if it's true,
Jeez.
he's like, he did kind of offhandedly at the end say, like, "Well, if it's true, it is disturbing and should maybe be looked into." And it's like,
Mm.
you're potentially violating constitutional shit now to do this. It's
Yeah.
like you're just acting so guilty about all this. For
Do you
I
think she should be impeached?
Pam Bondi?
Yeah.
Oh, she should have been impeached yesterday. I mean, that's
Yeah.
her whole handling of. We went from the
Everything I've
files.
seen, I think I support that now.
We went from the files are on my desk, and I'm going to hand out binders to conservative TikTokers, to they don't exist. It's all a Democratic hoax. To we're still looking into it. Back to it's a Democratic hoax. To now the Dow Jones is at 50,000. Her whole handling of this has been absolutely dreadful. It literally the
I
worst possible way it could have been done.
I think she's just covering for Trump. I think at the end of the day, she's doing everything he wants her to do. That is vengeance and revenge,
Mm-hmm.
in investigating and prosecuting people. Which, to be honest, you know what? I think it's kind of righteous in a way. The fact that they went after people close to Trump, and I'm not saying that's the way we should be doing things, but I'm just saying revenge is completely understandable for what they did to the people within the Trump administration and Trump himself, whatever. As long as it's legal, as long as they're legally prosecuting people and people actually committed crimes. But it's also protection. And
well, just to highlight that point real quick, there was that one. Was it Letitia James or whatever? The I think she was like the New York AG that prosecuted him and gave him those 34 felonies, and like the DOJ was looking into her, and everybody was like freaking out, and they're like, "This is retribution. He's weaponizing the Justice Department," and it's like, okay, but did she commit the crime she's being accused of? Because if so, then
yeah.
like, yeah, we can argue his motives, but maybe she shouldn't have broken the law.
Yeah, so what? Because she went after Trump, she should get a free pass? Is that what we're saying? Like,
That was just my one
you know what?
That was just my one
Yeah,
tangent I wanted to throw in there to your point.
but it's. But to my point, like, so she's doing everything that he wanted. She's still the virtue signaling that Republicans hate that Democrats do of the Dow Jones is at record levels. Donald Trump's the greatest president of the United States. I think she's, at the end of the day, like you said, cult of personality, protection, everything he wants, and she's not doing her job. At the end of the day, I think she's corrupt. At this point, I think you're corrupt and incompetent. You should be impeached because it's clear that you're not doing your job.
I think it's coming because, so I got a quote here I wrote down from Thomas Massie, and he said, quote, "Nobody wants to get on the bad side of Trump. That'll change once we get past our primaries." I think that you're going to have, I'm going to take that a step further and say once we get past the midterms, because I think either A, the Democrats are going to do well in the midterms, regain control of the House and Senate, and maybe be able to do some of that stuff, or depending on how the primaries play out, you might see a bunch of Trump allies kind of get their asses handed to them, and I think that's
I think so.
I think that's going to kind of be the reckoning, and he's going to lose his support.
I think the Democrats are going to take the House. I did see that there's like a 63 to 70% chance that the Republicans are going to hold the Senate, which we all know this game. Come on, people. Let's not hide past this. The Democrats are going to impeach Trump again. We know it's going to happen. Welcome to American politics. But I think she's. I do believe that Congress can impeach Pam Bondi, right, and remove her. And it doesn't have to go to the Senate, right?
I don't know the full process, but I would imagine
we're not caught out of our civics.
Yeah, I don't know all the rules of the Constitution, but I would imagine, if I had to guess, it does have to go to the Senate, because I mean the Senate's the one that confirms them anyway. And I mean, in a presidential impeachment, you need both chambers, so I would imagine you'd need both chambers for that.
I can see a lot of investigations into her when the Democrats take the House. And this isn't over. We know it's not over. Again, a lot of political grandstanding, but I think her handling of this and the cover-ups, in a sense, that we're seeing, I think, to be honest, I think they'd be right for doing so, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that this is all, like, I mean, we talked about, I think it was in the last episode, that neither one of us really believes these files are ever going to fully be released. I think that the Democrats are probably going to take back over, and they're going to
You won't see any more documents released.
No, you're going to see a lot of political showboating, a lot of theater, you're going to see more hearings with like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and stuff, and nothing's going to materialize from it.
Here's my big thing, though. I'm sure there have been a lot of eyes on those files, especially when Donald Trump was running for president again. I'm sure there were many eyes on those files. combing for evidence. I think there's a lot of inconvenient stuff within those files, but I don't think there's anything of any wrongdoing by Trump. Otherwise, that that would have came out. American politics, that shit would have came out.
Yeah, that's really the only reason I think that he
I think
potentially
there's a lot of inconvenient shit in there for him.
that's kind of where I'm at, because that's the only reason I think he probably didn't do anything too terrible, because somebody
I
would
think he
have leaked
cheated
that
on
shit.
his wife or something like that.
Well, somebody would have leaked that shit by now. Even him cheating on his wife, honestly. I'm just like,
Yeah.
but then part of me is like, I it's one of those things that, like, hey, if one domino falls, how many more fall? So maybe at the same time, it's like, maybe Trump did do some terrible shit, and it's just like, hey, mutually assured destruction. We don't necessarily want to throw his name out there and leak it, because he might leak so and so's name, or it might bring the whole thing down.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's stuff about Bill Clinton in there, and both. Did you see Maxwell? Her lawyer, as she pleaded the fifth, you know,
Yeah, she said
trying
she'd
to.
do it all. She would tell everything in exchange for, like, a pardon.
But her lawyer came out and said that both Trump and Clinton did nothing wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, well, how convenient that both parties have an interest in that.
I again, I
I'm
think
putting
this
my
is.
cap on. But it's like how convenient of that to have transpired there
I
for your
get. I
lawyer to say just those right words.
I think this is just one of those things where everybody's guilty on both sides, and it's just, hey, let's do as much we can to throw smoke on the situation, to muddy the waters, to throw something up. I think I think it was yesterday. I was joking with somebody at work. I was like, once the midterms are over and Democrats start doing investigations, that's going to be when China magically invades Taiwan. It's like there will be
Yeah.
something new in the news to get our minds off of this. I mean, keep in mind, at the moment that the first batch dropped, Trump invaded Venezuela. Then he talked about Greenland for a month and a half. It was like anytime that, the conversation around the Epstein Files started gaining traction, something happened to pull everybody's collective mind off of it. I think the same thing is going to happen for the next 2 years, and then Democrats, assuming they win the
They
presidency,
won't release anything new.
no, they won't. They'll find a new reason that they can't, or magic that there'll be a way they can blame Trump that all the documents got destroyed. What a shame. What a terrible thing. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I don't think the Democrats win the next presidency. I think JD Vance is conveniently being pushed aside for all this, so his name isn't dragged through the mud.
Yeah, he's one that is
Because he's
magically
off in
stay.
he's off in India, he's off in Armenia, he's literally out of the country as all this shit's going down.
Yeah, they've
They're
kept
keeping
him a
his
good
name
distance.
away.
He hasn't even like talked about it, like, at all during this whole saga. Like, I think he said some things and answered some questions, but he's not really popped up on
Well,
the
he was in
radar with all
Armenia
this.
this week.
Well, I
I think
mean for the whole
he's out of
saga.
country.
I mean for the whole saga, not just this week,
Yeah.
but this whole thing. I mean, he's been kept
Rightfully so.
nice and far away from it.
The powers that be, rightfully so, you want to keep your next big heavy hitter out of this shitstorm, right? And I think Gavin Newsom is kind of staying out of it as well. And
He's off in Europe
Kamala
right
Harris. Yeah, all the big political hitters of this next election cycle, they're keeping their name clear. They're off doing publicity stunts and stuff. Rightfully so, right? Nobody wants their name drugged through this right now, because this is career suicide.
I mean, but I feel like at some point you've got to address it, like whether it's now or it's on the debate stage in 2 years. Somebody.
But like you said, I think like you said though, you mentioned like it's bad for both sides.
Yeah.
And they're gonna conveniently ignore this next go around.
Again, there's going to be a million reasons why it's not released, or something is going to come up and take the captivate the mind of the American public.
Yeah, but we'll still be clamoring at the bit for more information. But at the end of the day, this is a constitutional republic, so we're not going to truly get to know anything that we want or get what we want.
How the hell is how are we the only ones that have access to this shit? I mean, this stuff spans many nations. I mean, Prince Andrew, the Crown Princess of Norway, that guy who's a prime minister or he's in Narendra Modi's cabinet. He's like his oil czar or some shit
Oh,
like
did you
that.
see
All these
Modi was mentioned in it? There were people protesting him.
yeah, I think I sent you that video. It's like all these
Yeah.
people are, all these countries are involved. It's like why are we the only? Nobody else has any
Conveniently,
files.
there's no American politician whose name's being released.
Well, not just that, but I mean, like the British don't have any files on this that they can release. The French, the Canadians, it's just America. We're the only ones with access to these files. No other country, even though they all seem to be tied up in this as well, no other country has files on this that they can release.
Yeah, didn't that isn't Maxwell a British citizen?
I think she's dual citizen.
Yeah, and didn't they have like an estate over there in Great Britain or the UK?
They might have. I don't know. I think this.
And
I think this also goes into we've got to. I think we briefly touched on it in the last episode. Epstein's alleged ties to the intelligence communities, whether that be Mossad or the CIA. I mean, Maxwell's father was an Israeli spy.
KGB spy.
I think what was it? He actually knew Epstein. He was the one that helped Epstein get his job as a professor or something, and then his ties to like Bill Barr, the former Attorney General under the first Trump administration,
Steve Bannon.
It's like I think all of this again, just ties into all that. If he was I don't think he was a spy. I think he would have been more of an asset. Again, I think that just goes to the whole, if you start taking out, it's like a Jenga tower. If you start taking out blocks, there's a risk of the whole thing collapsing.
Let it collapse.
Oh, and I think most people in most countries would agree with that. I mean, like you said, you referenced the protests in India. I mean, we've obviously been having our own conversations about that here in the States. You've seen people talking about it around the world. I don't think, especially if there are ties to intelligence agencies, that they're going to let that happen. Because I think, this is what I think happened. I think either he was involved in the intelligence communities to begin with, or once he got arrested in 2007, he had a bunch of dirt on a bunch of people, and maybe even called up some high-powered people that he knew, was able to get that sweetheart deal in 2008. I think that at some point, regardless of which of those stories happens, at some point he was involved in the intelligence communities, probably Mossad.
Oh, yeah.
He had all this dirt on all these powerful people. Israel's now able to blackmail all these leaders around the world. They're able to blackmail all these, important, rich, powerful tech companies, executives, and everything. And now it's just such an intertwined web that neither Mossad, the CIA, whoever it is, they don't want to lose all that leverage either. If all this stuff starts
you and I
coming
have
out,
both watched those videos of Benjamin Netanyahu actively talking about suppressing, anti-Israel stuff on American social media platforms.
Oh yeah.
It's always been a tactic.
That's why TikTok got sold. It wasn't because the narrative everyone, and keep in mind that was another example of both sides of the political spectrum screwing the American people. Most Americans were fine with how TikTok was. Poll after poll showed that. But they acted like, it was some great, terrible thing. China's getting your data, this, that, and the other. No, Israel pushed it because of all the war that was going on in Gaza. People were seeing on their phones on TikTok every day a genocide happening in front of their eyes. And Benjamin Netanyahu was like, oh, this doesn't look great. Hey, American politicians who I may or may not have dirt on thanks to Jeffrey Epstein, you need to do something about this. And look what happened. TikTok got sold.
No, we were bombing terrorists. That wasn't a hospital with the
What?
journalist standing outside.
Listen, collateral damage. You gotta kill a few hundred civilians to get one
They were
terrorist.
in the basement.
It's like I had to double tap the journalist. He had a camera. That's dangerous to
Yeah.
us. But yeah, I think that's at the end of the day, I think it's just there's too many powerful people, and the people. If the intelligence communities are involved, they have dirt on enough powerful people. If the Epstein files were released in their entirety without redactions and everything, there goes all that there goes all that leverage we have on people. You know,
Mm.
I mean, for look, a great example,
Yeah.
Thomas Massie. I believe it was him. He released that one man's name, the Sultan. He's some executive in some company in the Middle East. I'm not great with foreign names, but they released his name. He was the one that sent Jeffrey Epstein the email that said like thanks for the torture video or something like that.
Yeah.
His name got released. He's resigned this week. You
Yep.
know,
Seen that.
there goes. If hypothetically I'm an intelligence agency that has dirt on this guy, well, there goes my leverage on him now.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe, influencing him for more, warmer, cozier relationships
Well,
between, Saudi Arabia and Israel and
I just mean like using that as like the template as like in general. If I have dirt on somebody and that dirt comes out, well, there goes my
oh yeah.
blackmail. You know,
Yeah.
I can't blackmail the British royalty if Prince Andrew's name gets released. I can't blackmail the Norwegians if the Crown Princess's name gets released. You know, I can't blackmail Elon Musk if his name gets released.
Yeah.
So
I,
factor
I
that up another, times that by 1,000 for American politicians abroad, executives, all this, that, and the other, and now you see why no one wants to actually do anything about it.
yeah. I mean, there's dirt on everybody. And I I think other people do have those files. If I had any guess, if he was hypothetically an asset for the Mossad, I'm sure they still have those assets
Oh, I'm
or
sure.
those emails or whatever he had.
I'm sure at the bare minimum, Israel, England, probably France. They all probably have some, maybe not, they probably don't have like the extent of the files. They probably don't have everything that America has. They've got some files though. They've got some names. They've got some dealings. You know, they might not have like the flight logs and everything, but they've probably got some evidence that they don't want to share either because it probably makes
Yeah.
their politicians look bad. Look at I mean, a great example. Look at what was going on in France this past summer with Brigitte Macron and Candace Owens. Just because of that whole thing, you had all kinds of people asking uncomfortable questions 24/7. Imagine if now it comes out that these people were also partaking in Epstein's, you know,
Yeah. What if he had links to, the French government or, the Macrons themselves or something like that?
yeah. I
This
just
information is enough to upend a government.
exactly. That's kind of my point. It's enough to cause enough big problems across the board that it's in everybody who's involved's best interest that if nobody releases anything on it.
Yeah.
And I foresee, to circle all this back to Pam Bondi and even Kash Patel, I foresee they're going to be the fall guys for this. I would not be surprised. I talked about how Kash Patel is probably going to quietly resign in the middle of some busy week. I honestly, that's kind of what I foresee with Pam Bondi too. I don't think she's going to get impeached because that's going to make too many waves. I think she's going to quietly, Mr. President, I've done my job. I've supported this administration. I am retiring now. I think she's in her late 50s, early 60s, something like that. I could foresee her quietly in some busy week, stepping back from the administration, and then somebody else is going to take charge, and then they've just got to ride out 2 years of uncomfortable questions before.
She's going to sell a book.
Yeah, well, she's going to sell a book, and then somebody else is going to have 2 years of uncomfortable questions before they have to go and hand it off to the next administration to deal with, and it'll be their problem.
Yeah. I think eventually maybe more information comes out, but the people involved will already be r- they will have already resigned or stepped down or whatever, conveniently left their posts in companies, corporations, government agencies
Oh, I think this is going to
where
be like I think this is going to be like the COVID vaccine. How they lock that shit up for the next 100 years. I foresee like until the last person involved with this is dead, nothing's going to come of it. It's going to
I
be
did
something that's leaked 40 years from now when conveniently
right,
everybody involved is dead.
that, and I think I forget who I heard talking about it, but somebody mentioned that a lot of these guys who are guilty had already settled up with some of their victims and signed NDAs. But it's like, well,
Well,
that's not binding to the Justice
no,
Department
no, yeah.
releasing what they have.
That's
So,
that's a common misconception people have is NDAs do not protect you from criminal wrongdoing. If
yeah,
me and you go out and commit a crime and I make you sign an NDA, that means nothing if you go to the police and say, "Hey, actually, I have evidence that we committed a crime."
yeah.
P-
I
pe-
mean, legally, sure, that affects your NDA, but that's more of a civil matter, not a criminal matter. So that fucker's still going to jail.
yeah, well, and the thing is that I think in that case, two things. I think people don't necessarily understand that NDAs don't protect you from criminal things. So you sign an NDA, you hear that, maybe you think that that's what it means, and you can't do anything. But then I think more importantly is
Or statute of limitations running out. Who knows? Whatever.
which is weird that sex crimes have statutes of limitations. I don't understand
Yeah,
that. But
yeah,
well, I think more that it's a you're the power imbalance. If I am sex victim A, who is just some random person, and I am accusing a multi billionaire of sex crimes, they can tie me up in the courts for decades, bankrupt me. They've just got to outlast what little I can do. And then I
yeah.
think B, not this is all speculation. I don't know if you saw that report that Jeffrey Epstein, ordered. I think it was like 350 gallons of sulfuric acid. In theory, assuming that some of these conspiracy theories, quote unquote conspiracy theories, are true, maybe some of these people died. Maybe some of these people were killed. Maybe some of these people were used as examples. And if I am somebody who's a victim of this, that's definitely going to weigh on me as should I even bother getting involved or speaking up if there's a potential I might end up, my magically having a car accident at 2 a.m. and somehow
Yeah.
having 3 gunshot wounds to the back of my head.
I do not have suicidal thoughts. I am healthy.
I am the tweet I sent you from Thomas Massie. He's like,
Yeah.
I know how to swim. I have no bodies of water near me. I'm not suicidal. But I mean that definitely I mean, we joke about it, but that definitely is probably playing it, assuming some of these theories are true. That would be playing a part in my decision making on that. Is like, hey, if I hypothetically was a victim and I saw another victim get murdered right in front of me and then their body thrown in the ocean, and they're told, and then to be told, hey, if you say anything, we're going to come after you and do this to you. It's like, oh, well, I didn't see shit.
Yeah, I didn't see a damn thing.
I don't know what your sex crimes. What? This is the first I'm hearing about it.
I have to take my goldfish to the vet.
Yeah, I've got to
Good
go.
day to
I
you, sir.
saw nothing.
Good
You all
day.
have a lovely life. I hope we never meet again. I mean, like I said, we laugh about it and we're joking about it, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you're talking about average, not average, but very powerless people in this situation going up against potentially some of the most powerful people on the planet. Of course, there's nothing's going to get done.
Yeah. They don't. It would be career suicide to go after them, or
If not
to
actual
reveal
suicide.
information. Yeah, or if not actual suicide. Either way, unfortunately, the reality is you may have a worse outcome than the reputational harm of whoever you're going against.
Well, look at Virginia Giuffre. She was that big Epstein accuser who really, started getting everything spinning on this. There's a lot of questions around. I just saw something on TikTok recently about how she passed away. I believe it was last March, something like that. Um,
Yeah. Anybody look into those details? I just seen on Twitter or X that the person who did the autopsy on Epstein said this just came out today, I believe it was. No, those wounds were consistent of strangulation, not hanging. So, I mean, this is even spinning back up again, right? We'll never know. We'll never know what actually truly happened. Clearly, the FBI, I
who,
don't
who,
trust any information they put out.
so to go back to this, you were asking about her cause of death. She died by, it says, a self-inflicted gunshot wound in Australia. Famous for their access to firearms.
Yeah, that seems.
Again, not
I don't want to take
saying
that away. Yeah.
not saying anything did happen, but it's also, I mean, if I'm an Epstein survivor potentially, I might look at that and hey, have some questions and or maybe side eye
Not
that.
speak up.
Yeah, side eye it and be like, well, there's another reason not to speak up about all this.
Yeah. Did anybody? I'm curious if they actually ever dug into anything involving, her self-inflicted gun wound.
I'm sure they did. I have not
Because it
done.
might be conveniently like, that person that was related to the Clinton administration, right? Who managed to hang themselves and shoot themselves in the chest with a shotgun.
Yeah, it's again, all this goes, not to
Speculation.
not
Speculation.
not not to beat this dead horse, but again, all this would play into my mind if I'm, even if all of it's wrong, let's say if there's enough mud in the water to go, hey, maybe there's some truth to it. I don't want to end up like that.
Yeah.
I again,
Certainly not.
I foresee 40 years from now, we'll start getting some answers. Conveniently, everybody involved is already long dead and in the ground. And well, it's a shame that we never got justice. If only somebody would have looked into this. If only somebody had some files on their desk that they could have released.
Yeah, it's convenient, but those people are all dead now.
Anyway, moving on to the next big thing, the Water Wars Part 2.
Part two.
Well, on that note, I think this is a good spot to end.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate everybody listening to this.
Now, this was
Kind of gained some traction lately.
This was a
with
bit
these
of a
views.
this was a bit of a rambly one.
Yeah.
A lot going on with this one, a lot of speculation, a lot of mud in the water on just this whole situation. And the government's definitely not acting shady at all in their handling of it.
I would assume more to talk about over the next coming weeks.
Yeah, I foresee more coming out about this because there's still a lot going on. I mean, I know Thomas Massie's still kind of on a crusade about this, thankfully. I don't know. We'll kind of see where it goes.
Rogue Republican, our white knight.
Yeah. I foresee more of this picking up again after the midterms, especially maybe not after the midterms, but definitely in the lead up to the midterms, as you're going to have debates that are, the questions being asked at debates for Senate races and House races. Well, how would you vote on the Epstein Files? How would you hold the administration accountable? So I foresee this conversation is not over by any stretch of the imagination.
No. And maybe this isn't our last conversation on this.
I highly doubt it. I mean,
Highly doubt it.
well, there's new. Again, I mean, we didn't even plan on talking about Pam Bondi, and this just kind of happened. So,
yeah. Well, hey, everybody, check us out on Spotify. Check out our TikToks, our YouTube shorts. We're posted on YouTube as well.
Apple Music,
Amazon Music, right? Apple
yeah,
Music,
Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Appreciate those who have been following and listening along.
Please definitely, if you like us and our conversations, definitely hit that like button and subscribe. Appreciate it. It helps us gain a little traction.
And on that note, okay, bye.
See ya later.